Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Kathy Gray, Rachel Hostler, and Corey Foraker, all talking about an upcoming walk, Not for Sale, and Walsh University's participation. And Rachel, before we move on, I really do want to ask you, because you are in a tough spot. You are getting to be with students when some of them are away from home for the very first time, and some of them are going to try and spread their little wings and fly, and that's important, but also keeping them safe while they're discovering who they are and setting their own parameters and limits and so forth. That's a tough position. How do you do that?
Well, I absolutely love what I do, and I love our students so much. I taught middle school for a little while, which I enjoyed, but college students, it's just, it's such a wonderful experience to work with them.
Yeah.
And, I've always taken the, yes, they're away from home, but something that I love about Walsh is that we are a community, and the parents play a role in that as well. And so it sounds difficult, but it's not, because, you care so much for them. And so it's about educating them. And so when we talk about, talking about social media, we have those conversations on campus as well. And it might not be specifically about, keeping yourself safe, but broadly about how you're representing yourself on social media, because that plays into it as well. And so we talk through what you post on social media and what that means and what that says to the people that are viewing it. And so I think that's an important conversation. And like I said, working with students I've never felt for one day that it was hard. I feel blessed to be able to work with college students. So they're at a hard time in their lives, but I think when you're present with them and you put them first, they see that, much like
there's that relationship again. Exactly.
Relationship. I always build relationships with my students, and I think that helps us. Then they trust you and they listen, and they might not always say, like, I'm going to do exactly what Rachel says, but they're going to at least listen to that and take that in and find what works for them. And that's really what I try to focus on.
Well, and a wake-up call, I would think, too, when you realize that things that you have posted are there forever, somewhere. And some people actually have not become employed because of something that they did.
That's right.
Look at people in things that you said and posted when you were 16 years old are now coming back to haunt people who are trying to run for office.
That's so true.
Does anyone want to be judged by what you did when you were 16 years old?
No.
No. And social media, not do we just do it, we tell everyone in the world that we're doing it.
Yes.
So it's a whole different world, isn't it?
It is. And it can be a powerful tool as well.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of the conversation, is using it for good, not for, to bully others or to, fall into these traps that we see students falling into.
So important. Let's talk about the walk. What's coming up? Where's it going to be? When? And how can we participate?
Okay. Well, the Walk for Freedom is going to be held on October 19th. It's a Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to approximately 11:30 a.m. It'll be held at Walsh University Hoover Pavilion. You will see many people out there directing traffic and directing everybody where to go. But everything's going to be held inside that pavilion minus the walk. It is a 2-mile walk, and it's a free event. So we are super excited for the first time to have this at Walsh.
And this is basically saying not for sale. Now, I know in the past sometimes there's been like a silent thing.
Yes.
Okay,
it
tell
is
me about
a silent
that.
walk. If people do not have our shirts, the not for sale, one step at a time shirts, or if they don't have the A21 t-shirts, because you can have either or, you can just wear black. Black is just, obviously, we're standing up for those who don't have a voice. So it is a dark subject, but we infuse hope and we infuse light into the situation. So we do ask that people dress in black be as silent as possible. I know people bring children, and that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Kids aren't going to be quiet, but we just ask the adults, to be as silent as they can.
I think that's one thing that sets this one apart, because so many of the other walks against certain diseases and so forth, it's very chatty and it's kind of an uplifting thing. This is pretty somber, isn't it?
Yeah,
Let's
and there's
talk
a
about that
reason
bit.
for that. We want people, well, it's A21's walk, so they really want all of us to be reflective and to think about all of those who are enslaved across the globe. It's a $150 billion industry. People are being raped and abused for money or in forced labor. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to pray about. So we are hoping that this silent walk will promote that, will promote where people will just be thinking of others, taking that 2-mile walk to think outside of themselves, to pray for all of those victims. I mean, every victim has a family. Think about the families that are grieving because they've lost a child or they've lost a spouse or a loved one to human trafficking. And we have 5 different types of human trafficking. So we definitely want to use this time to just pray and to intercede for all these precious victims and to be the voice for the voiceless.
What are the 5 types?
Okay, there are 5 types. As we know, sex trafficking is one of them. That means people are being forced, deceived, or coerced a person to perform a commercial sex act. I'm going to give you some of the legal definitions here. Labor trafficking is forcing a person to work in captivity for little to no pay, which sex trafficking and labor trafficking happen right here in Ohio. Those are the 2 main human traffickings that we endure. Then there's bonded labor, forcing a person to work for low wages to pay back an absolutely impossible debt. Then we have involuntary domestic servitude, and that's forcing a person to work and to live in the same place, which is usually inhumane conditions, for little to no pay. And then child soldiers, which this typically is in a third world country where precious young little kids are being forced to be in some type of armed forces. So those are the 5 that we take a stand for. We're not just taking a stand for sex trafficking. It's all trafficking. Jesus came to set us free. So we are here to help everyone live free.
How can we have number 1 and 2 going on here, right here under our noses in Stark County, where we feel like we live in kind of a thriving, educated, informed community?
Gosh, unfortunately, it's easy. Children are being lured. I mean, we're not dealing with predators that show up in a white van and abduct a child.
We're not.
We are not.
Does
that happen? Of course it does.
That's the mental picture.
That is because of how back in our days of growing up, we were taught stranger danger.
Don't park anywhere near a van with no windows.
Right. Or, if somebody says, hey, you want to pet my dog, or do you want candy?
Don't do that, right.
We've learned over the years not to do that. Those are the tactics from a long time ago. The tactics now are far more severe. These predators are crafty. They definitely focus on mind manipulation, which is also called grooming. So what they do is try to befriend as many victims as possible. They prey on the children that are depressed, oppressed, low self-esteem, addicted, runaways. They prey on the vulnerable. So we have a big job to do on the mental health side of things for our kids to help with programs and services and counseling and church and whatever we can do to infuse hope to our younger generation, because it's that generation that's being easily manipulated into trafficking.
Well, it seems like all the things that you're talking about go hand in hand with the opiate crisis and the suicide crisis.
Of course.
And all of those things seem to just go together. And again, I go back to social media. Like you said, it can be used for such good, but bullying, it also can be used just to make a person feel like they're not worth anything. And then they would become vulnerable to all these kinds of things. How can we participate? How do we sign up? where do we go? What do we wear? You know, okay, tell me all the nuts and bolts. And then when you're saying that it's at the Hoover Pavilion, is something else taking place indoors?
Well, that's the pavilion. That the indoor
So we walk
portion,
indoors?
No. So the walk is outside. It's a 2-mile walk throughout the Walsh campus, but we'll also be on a little bit of Market Avenue and a little bit of Easton.
Nice. So it's not around a track.
No, it is not.
Got it.
It is not.
Okay.
And we wanted it this way so that we have more exposure, but we're still on Walsh property the entire time, which is so nice, and it's safe. For those that have strollers or the elderly, it's safe for everybody. But indoors is where we're really excited in the pavilion. We will obviously have different local agencies there right here from Stark County, mental health professionals, people that are boots to the ground, Rahab Ministries, Hannah's House, Children's Network. There's about 10 of them that will be present, which will be great because each agency is going to speak about what they do, who they are, and how we can make a difference with them by volunteering in their organization or agency. We're also going to have guest speakers, which we're really proud to have a survivor of human trafficking right here in our county, and he's a student at Walsh University.
Oh, my goodness. And he's willing to tell his story.
And he is willing, and it's a boy.
Wow.
So many people think boys do not get trafficked. We are here to say, sadly, that they do. And so he is going to rise up and share his story about forced labor trafficking.
Wow.
But we do have guest speakers other than that are going to educate. That's the focus of this walk this year, is lots of education for parents and for all of us.
So this seems like something we don't want to just come and go. We want to be there the whole time because
really
I don't
do.
think we want to miss any of these speakers.
Well, and how we feel is, I mean, come on. We all go to things that are like 2 hours. We'll go to a football game, a baseball game, children's activities, concerts. This is 2 hours where you're going to empower yourself with education and knowledge. Not only will you get empowered, but you'll be inspired to make a difference right in your own backyard.
I'm assuming everyone knows where Walsh University is, but let's let people know exactly where you are located.
Absolutely. We're in North Canton, right on East Maple, right next to or across the street from Washington Square. So you can find us, I mean, as soon as you turn on East Maple there, that's where we are.
October 19th, 9 to 11:30. What time should we arrive?
Well, registration starts at 9, and all the speakers will start speaking around 9:20 or so, and we'll have food and coffee and water, and we'll have music playing. We'll have merchandise that you can purchase, donations set up for A21 as well as for our own nonprofit. So there's a lot going on.
So wear your Not For Sale t-shirt.
If you have that, yes.
Or A21.
If you have that.
Or dress in black.
Yes.
Come ready to listen as you're walking, not talk. Right?
Yes.
All right. And that will be at Walsh University. And then in the Hoover Pavilion, come meet all the organizations and agencies that offer us opportunities to help. What kinds of volunteer opportunities before you go are available with Not For Sale?
Well, with Not For Sale, we have, because we put on this walk every single year, we always need volunteers. So right now we have quite a bit of volunteers ready to go, but you can always come to our notforsaleohio.com website and you can inquire there. You can inquire even on the day of the walk if we have any other opportunities available. When we do things throughout the year, we need volunteers. When we do community events, so that's a way that they can get involved as well.
Must we register ahead of time or can we just show up?
You can do either.
Okay.
So if you want to register ahead of time, notforsaleohio.com, you can go right there to the site under events, A21 walk, or you can register the morning of the walk too.
Kathy Gray, Rachel Hostler, Corey Foraker, thank you so much for what you're doing in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.